This is not a podcast about being broken, although you may have been. This is a podcast about strength for women who find themselves in difficult relationships, including that sometimes difficult one with yourself. We'll look at your relationship through a lens of psychology, faith, and a little dash of my own kind of feminism. We're not fixing them, we're fixing you, and that changes everything. Welcome to Stronger in the Difficult Places. Save yourself, heal your relationships. Listen in. Welcome to Stronger in the Difficult Places. I'm your host, Dr. Zoe, and today I'm talking with a guest, Courtney Gray. She's a certified life and body coach. She's a mom of 3. She's a wife to a college basketball coach, and she talks all about getting your relationship with food in the right place. We Americans have such a dysfunctional relationship with food. You know, on this podcast, I talk all about relationships. I don't believe I've ever had anyone come on and talk about our relationship with food. Courtney and I recorded this back in March, I think, maybe April, which is why you're going to hear some references about Easter. It's May now. But as I re-listened to this episode, it was so helpful for me today on my own journey of eating and self-care. And so I'm guessing that it will provide some help for you too. Courtney is also host of her podcast, Modern Body, Modern Life. And she has a link for you guys that I'll put in the show notes that we will talk about at the end of the episode. When it comes to helping her clients lose weight for the last time, Courtney believes that it's an exciting, loving, and transformational process. So we will talk about all of that in just a minute. But first up, as usual, my win and my fail. So I'm guessing I'm not the only one out there that has mom fails. And I had one. My mom fail this week was my 11-year-old daughter, Siggy, entered an art competition. And I had on my calendar somewhere, maybe in my text, of when the event was, but I got it kind of mixed up time-wise. And I'm a host of Hope Writers, and so I had to teach that night. And the time that I was teaching virtually online, basically, it was a half-hour difference between when my teaching ended and when Siggy had to be at the art competition. It overlapped by a half hour. So if I did the teaching, we were going to be a half hour late. And by the time I figured it all out, it was too late for me to find a substitute. I had no option. I had to teach. And I had the conversation with Siggy when I realized my faux pas, and she was disappointed, and she was just like, well, let's just not go. And I texted some of the people who were putting on the event and said, hey, listen, I've got a class to teach. I'm going to be a little bit late. Does it still make sense for us to show up if we're going to get there late at this time? And they texted me back, well, you might have missed half of it, but So I made an executive decision, even though my daughter was not even wanting to go anymore. And I said, okay, we're going to go. So as soon as I finish this teaching, we're leaving. We're going to head there anyway. And so I did my teaching, jetted out immediately, got the girls in the car, and we went, and we really hadn't missed much of anything. So that was really nice. And her art was up for, exhibit. But the win is that my daughter won the competition, and I was present to videotape the whole thing. The funny thing is though, I was videotaping it as they were announcing the winners, and they went through like third place, honorable mention, second place. And when they got to first place and they announced her as the winner, I was so excited I accidentally cut the video off. So then I had to restart it. And so when I was sending it to family and friends, it was kind of cut up, but it was really wonderful that, number one, my little artist won her very first art competition. We will be framing her art. She made a donkey. I'm going to put it in my email to you guys because I'm so freaking proud of this girl. But anyway, the fail is that I messed up my schedule, and as scary as it, as the reality is, we could have completely missed that wonderful, beautiful event. And the win is that I got us there. We really didn't miss anything. She won, got on stage. We got it all on video, and it was great. And so what's the lesson? Well, the first lesson is clearly I need to be more on top of my schedule. There's so many moving pieces. Sometimes I double book or overlap. But the beauty is that sometimes things just work out. We stress over things and we worry over things. And it turned out that one worked out. And you do the best you can, and you give it to God. So that's my win and my fail for the week. So let's listen in to Courtney Gray as we talk about our relationship with food. Courtney, I am so thrilled to have you on my podcast. And I know I say that with pretty much everybody I have on, but I only have people on that I'm actually thrilled to have on. So
I love it.
welcome.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
So I'm excited to talk about this, although I kind of feel like excitement isn't the best word. I'm looking forward to it because we Americans, just like I said in my intro, I think most of us have a dysfunctional relationship with food. We just do. It's in abundance, and we have such unhealthy food here. And we've just been taught, whether, by our family members or just our society, how to not have the best relationship. So there's so many diet plans, diet regimens, lose weight, fat. I mean, there's so much that I'm sure every single woman listening to this podcast has consumed on one level or another. And so I'd like to just have a conversation with you about this. So
I love it. And I'm so glad we're having the conversation. Thank you for having me, because I feel like there's a lot of conversations, a lot of noise out there about weight loss and what you should. And a lot of the conversation is you should eat this, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. But the conversation about the way we talk to ourselves about food, the way we talk to ourselves about our body, why we're eating in the first place, and how people are really feeling about their bodies, those conversations aren't happening. So that's why I'm really excited to speak with you.
Oh, good. So let's get just some background on how did you even start talking about this?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So it's a long story, but I hired a life coach years ago to help me make more money in my business. I had another business and I helped me make more money. And the coaching really started changing every area of my life. I started making more money in my business at the time. I started changing the way I parented. We have 3 boys, changing the way I parented. And it really started having me look at the way I talk to myself, the way I deal with my emotions, the way I eat. It started really changing that. So I decided to become a coach. I decided to get certified and invest in myself and become a coach. And even after I became a coach, I really started helping women with like general life coaching and confidence, and I would help them with their businesses. And what I really wanted to do is I wanted to help women lose weight, but I had my own thoughts and emotions that I had to unravel before I even allowed myself to speak openly about my experience with food. Like, it took a long time for me to say that at the most, well, I I have twins. So we have 3 boys, but two of them are twins. And they were 8 pounds and 6 pounds, 11 ounces. So they were huge. I know, they were huge babies. So I gained 75 pounds with them, but I lost that weight pretty easy. But it was probably 5 or 6 years later that I gained just about 12 pounds. And I was tortured for probably about 2 or 3 years with those 12 pounds, up, down, up, down. I should just enjoy where I'm at. I'm supposed to, right. We're all supposed to be loving our bodies right now. We're supposed to be not body shaming, body loving. But then I would toggle back and forth between, I really would feel better in my clothes if I could lose weight. I would make plans to eat better tomorrow. And then I would do really well up until 4 o'clock. And then I would completely sabotage. But it always came back to, it's only 12 pounds. Who am I to talk about this? And if I ever did talk about it, it was like, oh my God, girl, stop, you know? And so even though in my heart, I wanted to coach on this because I really started healing myself and I fixed this problem. I lost weight for the last time. I feel now in control around food. I understand how my mind works. I understand my triggers. I understand all of that. But it took me a while to start talking about it because I think there's a little bit of, we're not supposed to be talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's so much shame. Shame is the word for those things we're not supposed to talk about. And because of that shame, women sit in silence. They have all the negative self-talk. They imagine that, it's easier for other people. And one of the things that I feel even myself, is I know I just need to eat less. I know what I need to do. Just like I know I shouldn't have eaten all that stuff I did yesterday for Easter.
Yeah.
I know that, but I don't do it. And so it's not just the knowledge, like a dietitian of what we should and shouldn't eat, because I think there's so much information out there about what we should and shouldn't eat. There's another component. There's an emotional component that keeps us from doing the thing that we know we should do.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm imagining that most of the women that listen to your podcast are intelligent, highly educated, emotionally intelligent, successful women.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the women that I work with, where they would probably say is that every area of their life is pretty good,
Yes.
except for this one area. And it's like a dark little secret they don't talk about. Oftentimes, for a lot of women, I'm getting more and more women that they really would love to just lose 15 pounds or less. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that they want to lose 70 pounds. Of course, there are those women out there. But there's a lot of women where the reason they negate their desire is because it's like the way for me, it's only 12 pounds. And who am I? I've got such a great life. Who am I to really, be frustrated with 12 pounds? And you're totally right that most of these women I'm talking about, they know what to eat. The
Right.
struggle isn't, should I choose salmon or chicken, or should I choose rice or quinoa? That's not the struggle. The struggle is how to get through Easter without eating all your kids' candy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we don't know what to eat. So I get a lot of women that will come to me and they'll say, I've hired nutritionists, I've hired dietitians, but it just hasn't worked. And I'm like, yes, because anyone can tell you this is what you should eat, but then you have to eat it.
Right. So what is that answer? How do we get to that place of having a healthy emotional relationship with food?
Yes, I think always the first step, you'll probably agree with most things, it's awareness
Mm-hmm.
and understanding. And it's almost like I feel like this should be taught in school as a class. We
Amen.
don't, yes, I know. We don't even understand why we are eating more than we really want to. We don't understand it. And so it's really awareness of what is really going on, radical honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what that looks is just, I'm really miserable with the 10 pounds that I'm, weighing more than I'd like to. Yes, my partner says I'm gorgeous. Yes, I'm worthy. I'm, God's creation, whatever you want to think. Yes to all those
Right.
things. But radical honesty is I want to lose 10 pounds. And I've done it before, but I keep gaining it back. So the first is radical honesty. And then it's awareness of understanding your brain and understanding that there's different areas of the brain. We have our prefrontal cortex that really is helping us make decisions for our future. Our prefrontal cortex wants us to, create a goal and end up following through and all these things. But then we have our primitive brain that
Right.
all it wants for us is in the moment to be either getting away from any kind of pain, any frustration, or to feel pleasure. And that is where most people are running from their primitive brain. And they don't even know it. They don't even understand, because when you have these two areas of the brain saying, okay, Easter, we are not going to eat any of our kids' Easter candy. We are not going to do it. We've got this. You go, girl. And then all of a sudden in the moment, your primitive brain, it sounds like you. It's like, you know what? You should just have one. It doesn't even matter.
Right.
You want your daughter to see you eating candy, right? We don't want to mess her up. Our primitive brain offers us all these crazy thoughts
Yeah.
to get that dopamine in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I know that we can all relate to that, because in the moment, our drive is to feel good,
Mm.
and we want to feel good in that moment. We don't, our survival instincts are not necessarily about deferring gratification. It's about, how do I survive, first of all? And once we've got that under our belt, it's, how do I feel good? And so, because of that drive, because it seems to be a stronger drive than our logic,
Mhm.
what differently do we need to tell ourselves? What's a different conversation we need to have? Or maybe I should say a follow-up conversation, because I know all of us have the conversations. We
Yeah.
have the whole conversation. Like you said, our primitive brain can be so very manipulative. It just convinces us that it's okay. You can start the diet tomorrow.
Yes, yeah. Well,
And it can say it every day.
yeah, it's in a few levels of conversation. I always like to tell my clients, you want to go into a situation like Easter. I coached all my clients last week on Easter. And I said, you want to go into a situation like that, kind of with your hands up a little bit, like you're ready to fight, but like protective.
Yeah.
And you want to tell yourself, my primitive brain is going to give me a bunch of reasons why I should, oh, I need to have champagne because it's Easter. I don't want to hurt my mother-in-law's feelings. She made this cake. And so you need to be ready and understand that your primitive brain is going to offer you all these excuses why you should change the plan. And then when it actually happens, you can create some awareness and go, oh my God, it's happening.
There it
And
is.
really separate yourself from it and go, oh, this, Courtney said this was going to happen and this is happening. And then it just gives you a little bit more authority over it to be able to make a better decision in that moment.
I love that. So it's really about prepping. It's about preparing yourself. And, there's been a lot of research about willpower. And a lot of the research is showing that to some extent, it really doesn't exist. We as humans are really not able, at least across the board and over time, to exert willpower to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. And so there's something else we need other than willpower. And I hope that that also gives women a sense of, I don't know if peace is the word, because often when we are not able to have willpower, we then create a moral judgment about ourselves because of that. And if we can understand that to a greater extent, willpower does not exist in the way that we think it does, then all of a sudden we aren't bad people because we weren't able to withstand that thing. And so part of that concept of, what does work, I think, is pre-planning.
Mm-hmm.
And another one, and I'm going to interject here because I know this is your thing, but another one is identity as well. Because when we are able to create an identity for ourselves, our mind will continue to uphold that. So, for example, I'm trying to remember, it might have been in Atomic Habits, a book that I read, and it could be another book. But anyway, I read in this book that people who, for instance, are choosing to stop smoking, right? The people who identify themselves as non-smokers have a much higher rate of cessation of the smoking than the people who identify themselves as smokers who are trying to quit. It's so simple.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
how you identify yourself. And so, because when you tell yourself, oh, I'm a smoker, but I'm trying to quit, you've already identified yourself as a smoker, and your mind will take that, I'm a smoker, and go back to smoking. When you identify yourself as, I'm not a smoker, oh, you're telling yourself something. And it may seem like it's just semantics, but the science has shown that semantics actually has a big difference, creates a big difference.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that was Atomic Habits. That's a great book. And yes, because like I call it self-concept, self-identity. It's probably the same thing.
Right.
But usually when I start working with someone, I tell them we build their new self-concept. They want the women that come and work with me, they're like, I want to believe that like I can like take a little bit of the joy away from food. Like a lot of women, they look forward to it. It's their like, talk about a relationship with food. It's like their joy.
Yes.
It's what they spend
and
a lot of time.
comfort.
Yes,
And
totally.
love.
Yes, it's like their little wubby. And so when you start thinking like, I am the woman who doesn't have to have all the things. I am the woman that trusts herself. And one of the things I tell my clients, especially in the beginning, is you are going to want the food. It's okay to want it. But a lot of people, they feel like if I tell myself I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine, but then if I want a third, I feel out of control. No. You can tell yourself you're going to have 2 glasses of wine and you'll want the third, and that's okay. The first step is you get really good at going, I can sit with the wanting in my body and I can become a woman that wants more. And then eventually you want it less and less because you're like, yeah, it's no big deal.
I love that. I love that. I want to say that again. I can sit with the wanting in my body. The wanting doesn't automatically mean I have to have it or I have to seek it or I deserve it. The wanting is just a natural response to something that does feel good in the moment, but isn't good for you.
And something that has been like genetically altered like crazy to make us hyper addicted to it.
100%.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of women, they'll come to me right away. They'll say, I just don't even want the food. And I'm like, I hear you, but at first it's just not that easy. You're going to want it and you can want it and then be really proud of yourself. I always tell my clients I have a 3-step process that I teach my clients where it walks them through like sitting in front of the thing, right? Like for me, one of the things that was really hard for me for a long time was I love Mexican food and I could blaze through 2 baskets of chips. No problem. Like no problem.
Me too. too.
so yeah. And so I created a 3-step process to how to be in front of the food. And you actually physically feel the wanting in your body if
Yeah.
you allow yourself to sit there and want it. And you can actually think about what you want more than those chips if
Hmm.
you give yourself a moment. And one of the things I always say to myself is I want to lay my head on the pillow at night and be like, oh, I'm so glad I stuck to the plan. Because we never lay our head on the pillow and say, you know what? I wish I would have had a second margarita, or God, I wish I would have had another Cadbury egg.
Right.
Damn it. You know
Right.
what I
We
mean?
never do that.
Never do.
No. So true. We always do the opposite. You feel kind of sick and you don't feel that great, and you wish you had stuck to the plan because that joy, it's not even joy, but that comfort or whatever that little happiness is that you get from the food, it only lasts as long as you're chewing and swallowing it, and then it's done.
Yeah.
So that's great. I love that. What do I want more
Yeah.
than this ice cream or cake or
Yeah.
glass of wine? What do I want more?
And you can think long term. If you're trying to lose 15, 20 pounds, you can think, what do I want? Obviously, if you don't have those chips or that Cadbury egg, whatever, in the moment, you're not going to lose the weight, right? So we can think this summer, I want to feel really good in my bathing suit, right? That's a longer term. It's a little farther out. But it's important in that moment to think, what do I want right now, too? And right now, in a few hours, I know I'm going to sleep better if I'm not totally stuffed. I hate going to bed when I'm totally stuffed.
Right.
I know I'm going to be like really proud of myself if I go to bed. I know I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning going, oh my God, I did it. And that's when the self-concept starts to change. You go, oh my God, I think I'm becoming a woman who actually can be sitting in front of 2 baskets of chips at a Mexican restaurant with my kids and have 10 and be okay.
Wow. That's funny because I can imagine having none and I can imagine eating 2 whole baskets. But just
Yes.
eating 10, that does sound really hard. That
Yeah,
sounds really
it
hard.
is hard. Sometimes it is hard at first. And that's why some people, what they'll do is they'll be like, I'm having none. But this is kind of diet culture way of thinking,
Yes.
right? We've all been conditioned to, if we're going to reach our goals, we have to completely cut out all the chips, all the drinks, all the everything. And women are tired of it. They're tired of it because it sucks when you're going through it.
Mhm.
And they're tired of it because they know it doesn't work, because they know
Right.
they're going to lose the weight, and then they're going to start eating normal in quotes, and they're going to promise themselves they're not going to eat as much, but then they slowly start eating more, and then they shame themselves, telling themselves they've done something wrong when really it's the system that's not right. So how
Right.
much better would it be to get yourself to a place where you're like, I can have 10, 15 chips and be like, I want more, but I'm good and I'm really proud of myself.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful. And so here's my question, because we are really good. We Americans especially, we're really good about losing weight. We know how to do it. And we can do it
We
by
do.
starving ourselves, by getting on some kind of crazy diet. We can lose the weight. But like you said, we don't keep it off because it's not sustainable. And so here's my question, because sometimes it's frustrating to just make little tweaks to your diet because then it can take so long to lose the weight. When we know if we do something drastic, we can lose the weight
Mhm.
quickly. And then maybe we can maintain it. At least that's what my primitive brain wants to tell me. And
Yeah.
so, would you suggest that to lose weight quickly and then try to
Mhm.
maintain, or just to do it super slowly by just changing these small habits?
Well, I would say a hybrid of both of those.
Okay.
I would say I would do it slowly, not super slowly, but I would do it slower and more permanent. So if we know that diets don't work, I agree with you. I think we all can agree that diets don't work. We've all done the Whole30 and the keto. We've all done those things and lost weight and then berated ourselves when we
Right.
didn't maintain it. But I say what I do with my people, what I offer is a different way where you go slower, you start tweaking the way you eat forever. So
Mm,
I have clients that'll come to me and they're like, I don't want to give up wine. I'm like, oh, you don't have to. And I said, but you're probably gonna have to drink a little bit less. And they're like, I'm fine with that. So they'll say, okay, if I'm on a Saturday night, I normally would drink, 3 or 4 glasses. Let's go to 2. And then if you are the kind of person that don't eat very much, there's a lot of women that do this. They don't eat a lot during the day, but then
mhm.
they really kind of go crazy and they kind of gorge themselves at
At night.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually this is ironic. If for those women that are drinkers that want to drink, and there's nothing wrong with that, they'll kind of go overboard with their food. They come into their dinner very hungry, hangry, and
Yeah.
then they overeat. And then there's a little bit of shame, like, oh, I did it again. And then they sometimes overdrink. They
Mhm.
almost there's something I call a shame cycle where once you don't follow through with what you want to do, you feel shame, which in the end ends up making you eat more.
Right. You give
And
up.
so-
It's like, well, I already messed up. Might as well eat everything else in the fridge too.
Yes. Until we make another plan and we start the shame cycle again.
Yeah.
So what my suggestion and the success I'm having with my clients is let's make you eat a little bit less, better, move a little bit more, but let's have this be done in a sustainable way. So if you're the type of person that you love wine, then let's just back off a little bit on the wine, but let's continue having wine. And if you're like, I have some people that say, I don't want to intermittent fast. Okay, you don't want to intermittent fast. Can we have a smaller breakfast, or can we move your window, back a little bit? What can we do to do better and better and better and better? And the great thing that starts happening is as they start losing weight and they're feeling like, oh my God, this is easy. I wouldn't say easier. The reason I don't like saying easy is I feel like everyone says it's easier. And as they start feeling more in control, they start talking to themselves nicer. They start having a day where they kind of blow it and then they're not mad at themselves and they get right back on track. They start going, you know what? I think I will be willing to give up the sugar in my iced tea. I think that I want to be the woman that does that. Like I remember getting to a point where when I was trying to lose these 12 pounds, I was in Starbucks and I was behind this woman that looked amazing. She looked like you, Zoe. She was just like,
so sweet.
She was like stylish and beautiful and well-spoken. And she went up and she ordered an Americano black. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to be that woman. I'm like, I want whatever she's having, literally. And so it was hard at first because Americano black it's no joke of a coffee drink. But at the time I was drinking like a mocha or a latte or whatever. And so that was a self-concept thing where I thought, can I really go to my next level for the rest of my life? And that starting that day, I started drinking black coffee. Wow. It was hard at first, but then it got
used to it.
I got used to it. And then you know what is more fun than coffee and creamer is feeling like you look amazing in your swimsuit at 47 years old.
That is awesome.
And like feeling like when you go to get dressed every morning, you're not putting your pants on and then you've got a muffin top. So what shirt are you going to wear to cover it? And what if someone touches your waist and all that drama?
That tastes so much better.
It tastes so much better.
Yes, it does. Wow. Okay. And so it's almost like the atomic habits. You start small and you start to see results and that motivates you to do better, but you're not completely sacrificing everything, especially the things that you really like. And you are changing the conversation that you have with yourself about food and identifying yourself as someone who, whatever that is that you want to identify yourself with.
Yes. And then a huge component of my program too, and my belief is really changing the way we process emotions. We are in a society where we are constantly wanting to feel better. We're either swiping or eating or drinking or Netflixing. And really it's almost kind of like we're living this life like as a society where we don't want to feel any negative emotion. And so in order to not turn to food, you need to be willing to feel bored and not eat. And I love saying bored because bored, I feel like is a gateway emotion to other emotions. When it sounds no big deal, like, oh, I'm eating because I'm bored. But if you're bored and you actually sit with the bored and you allow yourself to sit there going, I feel bored, it feels antsy. And then what starts happening is it leads to other emotions. Like you start getting insecure, like I should have more hobbies. I should have a better relationship with my husband. We should have more things in common. So all of a sudden you start spinning out. You need to be able to sit with that and not turn to food. And that is a life-changing skill.
Wow. That's huge because you do two things. Number one, you're not eating, you're not gaining weight, or, you're not messing up your plan. But number two, if you sit with that boredom, you will eventually kind of uncover is the word I'm looking for, the thing that's causing the boredom. And maybe you'll take action on that if you don't have the food to cover it up. Right?
I love it. Yes. You understand this so deeply, which I knew you would. But yeah, like I went through this and I realized for me, my habits were, I was trying to work less. I was a bit of an overworker in the past. And so I was trying to work less. It was in the middle of winter. So I stopped working at 5. And first of all, I had a little anxiety because I'm like, I should be working, all that. So I'm sitting there and then I'm bored. My husband is watching something on TV I have no interest in. I can't go outside because it's freezing. It's like a Tuesday night. So it's not like I'm getting together with anyone. and I was bored and I figured out that what my habit was, all of a sudden I'd be like, you know what? I should bake cookies because I love cooking. I have 3 boys that at any moment they would love me to make
Of course.
cookies.
Yeah.
And I would say to myself, I'm going to make cookies. And I'm telling you, you get the dopamine hit even before you taste the cookie.
Yeah.
That decision of going, I'm going to make myself feel better because I don't like being bored. I'm going to make cookies was a huge relief away from the boredom. And so then I would make cookies and then I would eat them. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I did it again. What is wrong with me? Why can't I? Whatever. So when all of a sudden I started seeing that that was my pattern, I would sit there and go, I have to allow sitting here and being bored. And then after it was even like maybe a week or 2 of this, and it did not feel good.
Right.
But after about a week or 2 of this one, I thought, you know what I should do is I should just take my book into the bath. I would take baths, but I wouldn't really read it. I'm like, I should just like take my book into the bath. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm solving for really a problem of being bored.
Right.
I'm figuring out like, what else can I possibly do besides eat to make my life better?
And what a beautiful self-care activity. Getting in a bathtub and reading a book at the same time. Wow. Something you wouldn't have done. You would not have cared for yourself in that way.
Well, and it sounds so little. It sounds so little and insignificant, but when you're looking at like a Tuesday night, you have a block of 3 hours, it actually is a quite lovely thing to do. It's like, oh, I'm going to sit in, or maybe I'm going to like, we're almost empty nesters. So one of the bedrooms is going to be a guest room, but I already told my husband, I go, I'm going to make like a reading corner in one of those bedrooms because I don't want to read in bed because I'll fall asleep at 6. But I'm like, I want to make I want to buy a lamp and I want to do, so I can go there. If I am feeling bored, I can go and read. I have so many books I love. And so we can really expand our lives even in little ways by allowing ourselves to feel some of that emotion that our primitive brain is trying to get us away from.
And the good news, I think the beautiful news is that the little things that we do, those little things add up. Just like the little amount of food that we eat, it adds up over time. It might feel like, oh, it's just 1 cookie or it's just 2 cookies. And so the beautiful thing is that it works both ways. Those little habits that we can say, they're not that big of a deal. If you just do it one time in isolation, it's almost nothing. But if you do it one time and then again on a regular basis, it adds up in the healthiest way.
Yeah. And then it changes your self-concept because when we actually start going, oh my God, I'm actually doing well at this, you start to say, I'm the woman that can go out and only have, like I'll go out to dinner with all my girlfriends and I'll be the only one not having a drink. And it was hard for me at first, but now I'm like, it's totally no big deal. I'm the type of person that sometimes I don't drink and I'm totally fine with it.
That's
you
beautiful.
really become a person who feels in control around food.
Yes, it goes back to that identity. I'm the type of woman who, and I would love to just encourage our listeners out there to write that down. I'm the type of woman who, when it comes to your eating, and actually, I think when it comes to all the things about your relationship with yourself that you might want to change, I would love to have you guys do that exercise. I'm the type of woman who.
Yeah, I love that exercise too. And I call it what stories we tell ourselves because I feel like the constant, communication in our own head. I think of that as a story. And one of the exercises I'll have my clients do is I'll say, what story have you been telling yourself? So they can see it's usually pretty painful.
Right. And usually a lie.
It's you. Oh, totally. But they can find evidence for it. So they might say, I always give up, and they can find evidence for that. What story do you want to start telling yourself now? And you really do, as you take action, need to start telling yourself you're capable of that new story.
I love that. Courtney, this has just been amazing. So thank you so much for coming on. Can you share first one last word of encouragement for that woman out there who is really feeling hopeless? She's done all the things. She's listening right now and she's going, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would work for me. Can you just give her one last word of encouragement?
Yes, for sure. My word of encouragement is it makes sense why things haven't worked in the past. Because most people have tried a diet. They've tried taking everything out, all the alcohol, sugar, flour, all of that out. And when they're doing that, they're really not learning anything. They're just willpowering their way through a very short, like you talked about willpower. We can willpower for a week or 2 weeks and lose weight quickly. But the reason why it's not working is they're not changing them.
Right.
So in order to really change your relationship with food, you need to change the way you think. You need to change the way you process emotion. So there really is hope for people. There really is a way to do this differently by changing you. And then by the end of you changing you, you feel like, oh my gosh, not only have I lost weight, but now I feel in control. So much better.
I love that because you just described my tagline for this podcast is we're not fixing them, we're changing you, and that fixes everything, right? And that, that of course is about relationships, but we have a relationship with food. It applies directly to that. It's not just going outside of yourself and thinking if I can fix all that, if I can line all the food up and do all of that right, or if I can fix them, I'll be better. No. You got to change yourself. And when you do, there's a ripple effect and it changes everything around you. So, thank you. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. So if someone out there is thinking, I think I need a coach to help me with this. I think I would like to talk with someone to get deeper in this because I've been struggling on this bus for a long time. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, CourtneyGrayCoaching.com. And then I also have a podcast. It's like I don't really have a lot of interviews, but I do a lot of teaching. I teach on the podcast. It's called Modern Body, Modern Life. And I actually have, if your people are interested, I actually have a free workshop that they can immediately get access to. It's Get Your Body Back in 2024. It was my most popular workshop. I do workshops about every other month. And this one was so good that I turned it into just like an evergreen, and I can give you the link for that just so they can really, everything we heard is turned into a workshop where they can dive even deeper.
I love that. Yes. Give me the link and I'll put it in the show notes.
I love it. Well, thank you for having me. You're so wonderful. This was great.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you for listening to Stronger in the Difficult Places. New episodes go up on Tuesdays. Subscribe to my email list so that you can get some encouragement from me, and have a strong week. See you next week.